We're going to go ahead and get started with what's the big deal? Grants and loans and deadlines. Oh my. Greater Ashburn Development Association presenting to you this 3-day workshop for the big grant, the business interruption grants. If you've been with us the past 2 days, you've received a wealth of information. We definitely love your feedback on what you've received so far, what you think about it, what information you would have liked to receive. And of course, if you want to be a guest on one of our topics and you want to share your talents, feel free to reach us at info@gatachicago.org, info@gatachicago.org. We'd love to have you aboard. Today, let's talk about the grants and the loans and the deadlines and how to be creative about keeping up with all of those deadlines for the many grants you or someone you designate will be writing, right? Perfect. Thank you for joining us once again. We're going to be talking about grants, loans on deck, and what's upcoming, applications and organization systems, and of course, as usual, the resources at the end. If there are any questions and answers that we notice are in the chat, we'll address those as well. Otherwise, we'll bid you adieu until our next event. What is BIG? BIG is the Business Interruption Grant. It's a $636 million grant, of course, developed by Governor Pritzker and the IGA to provide economic relief for all the businesses that were hit the hardest by COVID-19. This time they've set aside quite a few million of those dollars, 200 million to be exact, for the hardest hit businesses that are basically more hard-shipped than the first round. This is the second round of BIG. Okay, funding can be used to help businesses with working capital, expenses, including payroll costs, rents, utilities, and other operating costs. So we're going to be talking about the SBIF, the agricultural grant, which is also through BIG, and it just opened up as of yesterday, actually. So you're getting it first here. And of course, the SBA 504, which is actually a loan. SBIF is a grant. The agricultural grant through BIG, of course, is a grant. And SBA 504 is a loan, but with some very valid, poignant points for benefits. SBIF, Small Business Improvement Fund. The granted administrator is SummerCorps. You can find their information at summercorps.com/SBIF, as my husband likes to say, SBIF. It's financial assistance for building improvement costs, and they're the program administrators who are contracted by our city's Department of Planning and Development. So they're official. You've got some other people that are sharing information about the SBIF program. These are the official administrators of the SBIF. They use local TIF funds, which are tax increment financing funds, to reimburse you for the pre-approved repairs. Now, I should have did my highlights in yellow that I usually do right there. Now that I'm looking at it in hindsight, because you cannot have already started on the project and try to get reimbursed for what you've already expended. You may not do so. It has to be pre-approved repairs. You get your approval letter, your alderman gets the letter, they sign off on it, they're agreeing for you to actually receive these funds, and then they will direct you as to what point in time you are able to start construction, okay? Or the rehab of your business facilities or adjacent land acquisition. So yeah, you can buy that land right next to your building using these funds for the purchase. Absolutely. Okay, get her done. Even if you purchase it, now they'll allow you to purchase the land, right? Do the construction, the build out, and all those kinds of things. That is not available under the program. You can just only acquire the land. You cannot expand your business with these funds. You can't do any of that. You can only repair or rehab the facility that you have, or acquire land next to the facility. You can't do parking lots. You can't expand out the parking lot. You can't do sidewalks, all these things like that. Go to the website. You'll have more instructions on what some of those restrictions are. They're not too grand, just some of the things you say, man, I wish they would allow that, right? Maybe feedback might be helpful. I don't know. Anyway, the maximum grant assistance for an industrial property is $150K. For a single tenant commercial property, the max is $100,000. Let me clarify that. So you have a building, You're a tenant in the building, but you have the business. You're the tenant with the business. You get 100,000 max for the repairs or the rehab of your space. As a tenant, I probably said something there. I'm talking to somebody right now because yes, you don't have to be the owner of the building. Unlike the other funds that we were talking about the last couple of days, right? Where you needed to be the owner, send your owner ID in. No, here we go, tenants. This is something for the smaller dogs, right? Get you some SBIF money. On the website, it'll show you actually how to find out when the area that your business is in is open so that you can then start applying, right? You can put your application in. And depending on how many people apply, if there's enough funds for the amount of people that apply, you all, get the maximum amount split among you evenly. If there are more than the number of people available to do that, then they do what's called a lottery, right? And then once they put your name in a fishbowl, and like they literally do this, they literally put your business name in a fishbowl, and each of you actually pull your name, pull out of the bowl, rather. I'm sorry, you actually pull out of the bowl, not your name, I'm sorry, a number. They actually put the number in the bowl. You pull the number out, whatever number that is, that's your number, and then they allocate accordingly to whatever their internal systems are. Okay. For multi-tenant commercial properties, it's 50,000. Multi-tenant commercial properties. So if you've got a rental unit attached to the property, it does not include that space. It's only for the commercial space. So mixed use can be done, but only for the commercial portion of the mixed use space. Now, if you're converting the residential into commercial space, well, that's renovation, that's rehab, right? So that's how that goes. But you're not renovating the tenant space to keep it a tenant space. That's what you're not going to do. Okay. If you want to change the rental space to be inclusive of the commercial space, for instance, and so there are some workarounds with this. Say, for instance, you want to make it a kitchen area for the commercial space, and all of the commercial employees or the public for the commercial space can use this space, then it becomes your commercial space. Talk to your professionals. As you can see the notation at the bottom, please consult your professionals about that in regards to zoning, because if it's still zoned as residential, therein may lie your problem with that. But I'm just giving you some creative ideas and some workarounds to actually make the space a part of your commercial space. If that may be considered expanding your business, therein may lie another problem. So again, consult with your professionals, but I'm just giving you ideas. It's only for the commercial space, right? And if it's multi-tenant, it can be for all of the commercial spaces. But remember, you're only going to get 50,000 per space. So if you got 4 spaces, right, you get 50,000 per space. But your maximum for a single tenant is 100,000. For a multi-tenant commercial, it's 50,000 for the entire building. I'm sorry, the entire building, not for each unit, the entire building. Okay. Let me get off SBIF before I give y'all too many erroneous details. Go to summercore.com/SBIF. Get the information that you need. Check to see what's open right now, which is what they call on deck, right? What's open now, and then what's coming up next is called on deck, right? What's on deck to open. So you'll be able to see those areas. They also provide a map so that if you're not sure if the SBIF is in your area, you click on the map, right? And see if your building falls within the guidelines of the map. Check that out, right? They got people there that'll help you. Sylvia's great. She's there to assist. She's been there forever, for as long as I can remember, as long as from when I first found out about SBIF, 2014, 2015, Sylvia was there. So she's got a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of information about this. They roll out webinars and information about these programs all of the time. As I always say, we're just the messenger bringing you some information and some details, okay? We've got the agricultural fund, which is a grant. I mentioned this on the first day, and I had it in caption in red because it was not yet open for applications, right? The moment I made that announcement that it was not open for applications, it opened for applications. So you're hearing it right here, potentially for the first time, the applications for agriculture. If your business is an agricultural based business, there's $5 million of remaining funds of big set aside for livestock production disruptions. If you've had a disruption in your industry, here is the link where you go to for information about this grants, okay? And then you've got the SBA 504. Now, may this one last because it is a loan. It's not a grant. It is a loan, okay? But very, very, very favorable interest rates on this loan. It provides approved small businesses with long-term fixed rate financing. That's where I should have put another yellow highlight, because the financing is at such a low rate and the term is so long. It's one of the best loan funding resources available for small businesses out there. And it's been around for over 30 years, right? All of these things are coming to surface because we're in a pandemic and the powers that be were looking for ways to assist. So what they really did is just redirected us to something that was already there and just, put some emphasis on it. So here we are, right? These are things we need to be mindful of. The economic disaster loan is something that's been around forever, but we just didn't pay any attention to it until the pandemic. That's been around forever. Whenever there's a disaster, that's something you can tap into. The pandemic obviously has been deemed a disaster, right? The hurricanes are disasters. You tap into it, right? Hailstorms, if it's bad enough, whatever's going on in your state, if it's bad enough and it's declared a disaster, you go to the economic disaster loan website and you get the information you need to apply. Keep that in mind. It's not just for pandemics, for illnesses, right? It's not just for COVID, it's for a disaster. As my son says, my 8-year-old, it's in the name, right? There you go. So they're fixed rate financing at very, very low rates, depending on the type of entity that you are, for profit or nonprofit. I believe it's 1% lower for nonprofits, which is amazing. And they're used to acquire fixed assets for expansion or modernization. So here you kind of want to be able to couple it with the previous screen with the SBIF, right? Because that's not for expanding your business. That's for renovating, rehabbing your current space. Go ahead and get you a loan for that difference so that you can also expand, right? Or modernize, update it. Here's a key. And I keep saying I should have added this, but this is just an aside. You can. You listening? You can apply for this loan. Step 1, indicate to Summer Corps that you've applied for the loan. Step 2, whatever your down payment requirements are for acquiring the loan, you can put in an agreement that when you get the reimbursement from Summer Corps for doing your renovations, that the reimbursement will take care of it. Y'all not listening. I'm going to start again. Let Summer Corps know that you're applying for the loan. The money required to apply to get the loan, Summer Corps' reimbursement can take care of that through an internal agreement that solidifies that. Ask about that for specifics. And again, consult with your CPAs and your attorneys. I'm just giving you some nuggets. If you have to come up with some upfront costs, you can work that into your agreement with your reimbursement for the Summer Corps program so you can get started right on your project, potentially with no out-of-pocket costs upfront. You're only going to get reimbursed with the SBIF, and I don't think I mentioned that. It is on their website, up to 75%. Okay, up to 75%. So not everyone will get up to 75%. Again, it depends on how many people applies in that TIF area for the SBIF. 504 loans are made available through certified development companies or CDCs. SBAs, which hopefully you know is the Small Business Administration, their community-based partners are the CDCs for these loans. There are over 260 CDCs nationwide, much like the SBCs for the bid grant. You want to locate the one that's nearest you for many of the same benefits I discussed with them. Oftentimes they have a lot of other additional connected resources for the area that you're in. And there's the link to click on to, first of all, locate the regional area for SBA, and then it'll break it down to the nearest CDC to your TIF area for your business, okay? All right, those are the 3 things I wanted to make sure that we shared with you today. And now what we're going to do is talk about how to get organized and applying for those. We talked about your credentials and how to get all of those in order, but how do you keep the process of applying for the various grants and loans? How do you keep things organized and ensure that you're meeting the deadlines for each of these grants or these application periods, right? Some of them are rolling periods. You have nothing to worry about in that regard, but obviously you still want to stay organized so that you get the process of submitting your application done sooner than later, so that you can get considered sooner than later and receive your funds sooner than later, so that you can continue with your program sooner than later. So here's an idea that we used with our son who was applying for scholarships for college. And we learned an accordion file system was one of the best ways to keep things in order in reference to the due date. So you get you one that has, you can do it two ways or both ways. You get you an accordion that has 12 slots, and oftentimes you can find the ones that have the days, the months of the year, January all the way through December. So if something is due in November, for instance, you would take that application information or that fact sheet or whatever you have pertaining to that grant or loan, and you stand it up in the November sheet. Why would we stand it up instead of lay it down? You stand it up because November is next month. So that's your alert to start moving on some things if you haven't finalized some things for that thing that's coming up the next month. So you stand it up. Anything else, December, January, you lay those down, but yet you still have them in the months relative to when they're due. Now with the numbering one, you can get the one from 1 to 31. So that's for all days of the month. And so if it's due on the 15th, then you stick it in the 15th. That's good for when it's in the month that you're in. So when I say use both of them, it's because, and this is for people obviously who don't want to use the electronic systems, as you see, those are coming up next. But when you have the October one standing up, right? And then you have the days of the numbered days in of the month in the other accordion, you also then know what you've taken care of for what day of the month, or what's due what day of the month. You swap it out from October and you pop it in the day of the month now that you're in October. So once you're in October, you take November's out since it's standing up, pop it in the date that it's due, and now you're working up to that date. Again, it's still standing up. That's the only thing that goes in the number accordion file. Those are the ones that are, I'm going to use SBIF terms. Those are the ones that are on deck. That's what's happening. That's what's getting ready to happen right now this month in the numbering system. And the ones that are the monthly accordions, those are the grants or the loan applications that are due in the month. Stand it up when it's the month coming up. You're in October, November's is standing up. You're in June, July's is standing up. You're in June and there's nothing due in July, but it's not due until December. December's is standing up. Not going to wait till November. You're in July and you have nothing else in between. So your next on deck item should be standing up to get you ready, to keep everybody on the same page, on the same mindset. No one has to ask questions about when is this due. You can look and see, oh, the so-and-so grant is due in December. What do we need to do to get that done? And everything should be compiled in that accordion space for December. And then the number system, once you get to December or the last day of November, you take December's and you put it in the numbering system on the day that it's due. If it's the 28th, stand it up on the 28th, and you have something you're doing each day or whatever you plan up until the 28th. Now, let me give you a cushion. If it's due on the 28th, have a due date in the 28th, but then maybe a red sheet or a green sheet or something, red to say, hey, stop right here. This is the end, but put a green sheet in the week prior so that you can set yourself a pre-deadline deadline. And you're crossing all your T's and dotting your I's that week before to make sure that you're ready. Your submission is tight. If you had any errors, issues, you're able to call somebody up until that point versus the day of having all those problems. And then you run into the deadline time. Okay. So that's the accordion file system. Worked really well with the scholarships where we're able to keep up with many scholarships and their due dates and get things submitted timely. Another way is Google Sheets, working in the same way of the accordion file. But one thing I like about the Google Sheets is it's across all the platforms that you could possibly use and all the devices and anyone's device. You can access your Google account from any device, anywhere, at work, at home, at someone else's job, at someone else's home, in the lobby, in a restaurant. No matter where you are, you can access it as long as you have internet service to get on the internet, unless you've made some things available offline. Of course, you can access those as well. But the fact is that they're live documents. So what you change here changes elsewhere, and it's the same information. So you can keep yourself up to date and just use it. Google Sheets is very similar to Excel. I'll kind of bleed into that next one. It's kind of like Excel. It's very similar to Excel. They're compatible in many ways. Many of the features still can be functionable and usable in Google Sheets from Excel. And you create yourself, of course, the columns and rows, the X's and Y's, and you put the grant up top, and then put the grants on the left, and then the dates up top, the months up top, and then the dates in the middle. So you've got the grant name on the left side, and you've got the month up top, and in between where they intersect, the name and the month where they intersect, that's where you're going to put the date for when they're due. Okay, that's just one basic, simple system. Add a space in between each month, a column or two in between each month, because therein is where you will put the things that you've already collaborated on or began to compile that you need for each grant or each loan. So you'll type in there that, whatever you've got a check system, put check boxes there, or simply type it in, whatever your level of talent is using Excel or Google Sheets. And you can keep up with what you've so far compiled, so that when it's time to sit down and actually go through your process, you've got everything you need versus stop right here because I got to go search for this to upload it. Start getting things ready ahead of time. Okay. Calendar invites are a simple thing for you to do for yourself in addition to one of these things. It's not going to be a substitute, but it's a supplement. In addition to the accordion file and the Google Sheets, use a calendar invite to remind yourself of things that you need to get, so that you can then load it into your accordion or update it into your sheets or your Excel spreadsheet. And then set yourself a reminder a week in advance, of course, from the actual due date. And then, of course, set a reminder on the day of, just in case that it's due today, and check with whoever that you may have designated to get it in, that it has been submitted, and you've got your proof and your receipt and your copies and all of that. And this was a day one tip, but I'm going to mention it again. Whatever you are submitting, make sure you make copies when you're typing things into fillable forms. Copy and paste it into your notes or Google Docs or Word or somewhere, so that if anything happens to your submission, oh no, I was ready for everything. I did so much prep work and now everything disappeared. How many of us have been in that situation? Yes, you will have to start that process over, but you've got everything copied, so at least it won't be as tedious or time consuming, potentially putting you beyond your submission time to actually re-enter that information and get it back in, right? And I would suggest having that already on board somewhere accessible, because if you're applying for similar things that are asking the similar questions, you've got this information already typed up somewhere, so that all you're doing is copy and pasting and filling out these forms. You could potentially get 3 or 4 done in any one given week, or any given time that you're sitting down and actually doing it. As a air quoting here, because you can't see me, grant writer, you need to become more proficient with doing these things, so that the obstacle of the daunting task of doing it is no longer an obstacle, and you start to become as efficient as possible, getting the funds that you need to keep your business and your programs operating and running during these times. And of course, any electronic reminders, once you do the calendar invite, there are also reminders as well that can pop up on your screen, pop up on your computer. You can share those with other people so that you can be held accountable for your own accountability, your reminders, right? So hopefully these are some tips that are valuable for you in keeping up with the process of applying for grants. We are definitely not specialists in this area, but we are certainly and definitely vested in providing the information that we feel we're proficient at. And this is one of those things that we are hoping will be valuable for you. As well as the other 2 workshops, this is information that we had shared before about different loans that are available. So other funding loans like the PPP and the EIDL, these were loans that were available. They may or may not be still available at this point, but basically In some counties and places, they're saying they're not. This is a form that shows that the application filing dates for physical damage was August 24th, 2020. Economic injury was March 23rd, 2021. Again, this is right from the SBA's website. So don't go off of what you heard from people saying, oh, that application deadline has closed. Yes, for physical damage, you're correct. But for economic injury, remember, it's called the EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan, March 23rd, 2021. Okay. So again, consult with attorneys or CPA, contact the SBA office nearest you so that you can get information. If in fact the information is valid that they have run out of funds for it, that very well could be the case, but application deadlines, as you can see here, are still open, even though it indicated that the occurrence was May 20th through June 8th for when this happened. That's the period you need to focus on for when your economic injury was in fact, I guess you could say, for businesses, if the economic injury happened during those times, you can still apply up until the 21st. But I'm choosing my words carefully. Consult with a CPA or an attorney about anything that may have happened outside of those timeframes, yet still as a result of what happened there during those timeframes, and they'll direct you best. Okay, I'll leave it at that. And then, of course, round 2 applications for BIG, the business interruption grant. The links here, once you get the slides, will be activated in the website themselves. You have the round 2 application questions, the checklist. Definitely make sure you print that out so that you have it at the ready when you're applying for the BIG grant or any grant or loan for that matter. I think it's ideal. This checklist is for BIG only. If they have them for the others, they would be on their websites. And even if they don't, create one for yourself based on the eligibility criteria that they have listed. Type you one up yourself, print that out, and check off things to make sure you don't miss anything. You have the eligible cost list. Those are eligible costs that you can actually use the funds for. What you cannot do, though, is double dip. If you've got the PPP or the EIDL, or if you applied, didn't get it yet, but you applied for specific costs, you can't use the BIG grant for those same specific costs, okay? Other federal support like PPP and EIDL is in English and in Spanish as well. Other criteria, the eligibility criteria, now that's for your business, what your business is eligible for the funds or not, whether they're eligible for the funds or not. Technical assistance for your application is available in English and in Spanish from the BIG help desk. Again, once you get these slides, you'll go to the website. Those links will be live on the website, not in the slide. And some more information for you. Once again, we've put the link up here for you to be able to see where all this information came from. The sources from the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Development, Small Business Assistance website, link up top. That's where everything has been compiled from. And we just pulled out a couple of high point links, mainly to apply. Additional time might be needed to submit, but that will not impact your eligibility per the website or your chances of receiving the grant. So take your time, yet be as diligent as possible with some of the tips that we've mentioned, and then apply. And if you need help, of course, you can get help with Action, which is another organization in support of helping people with these funds, applying for these funds. Their link is right there. And then online with the OMEE, the Office of Minority and Economic Empowerment. This link is for dates and times for being online with them for different webinars and things that they have about grants that they are assisting with administering. And then program manager advocates can also assist from the OMEE, and you can reach them at ceo.omee@illinois.gov, and the email link is right there in the slide as well. You have what's called Big Community Navigators. These are organizations that are helping to understand the application. Applying for an application is one thing. It always is best to understand the things that you're applying for and what you're applying for so that you can ensure you're submitting the right pieces of information. Some information is self-explanatory. Some might be a bit ambiguous that you might need to be able to understand what they need the information for, what the information is actually supplying so that you know you're supplying exactly what they need, okay? There are 42 SBDCs in the nation, in the state that are helping with this program. Illinois Small Business Development Centers, you can find the nearest one at that link. And of course, Chicago Urban League is one of those big community navigators. They're huge proponents and supporters of various beneficial programs for Illinoisans. Greater Auburn Gresham Development Center, our sister agency in the 18th Ward, also an email there. And the last link is the executive order for every stimulus package and program offered for the state of Illinois. It's a huge, huge document. It's a huge order. I implore you to check it out when you get some leisure time on your hands. It's pretty lengthy. What we have supplied for you has just barely even hit the cusp of what's included in that order, as well as even these links to these different sites for these various programs and grants. They are just hitting the cusp of what's included in that executive order. Just as it states, it's the executive order, it's the entire order, it's the entire bill, basically, okay? That's it, people. We thank you so much for participating. I wish I had my DJ equipment going on. I'll do some hand clapping. Our upcoming events, we've got a Nextdoor app navigation event that'll be going on. Those who are on the Nextdoor app, you'll be hearing some information coming soon about some navigation tips, where to find what, where to post what, where not to post what, okay? And we've got some Halloween spooky storytelling coming up by our Ashburn kids. We'll be sending out some signups for that to hear some spooky storytelling by Ashburn kids. And first up is our very own Gatta kid, Amir Pinkston. He'll be reading some spooky storytelling. And if you'd like your kid to sign up again, we'll be sending out some details. You can always email us for questions. And then we'll have a fall decorating contest to see who's in the fall spirit for decorating. I love seeing the pumpkins and everything that I'm seeing so far. I would love to post some pictures on the GATA website about some of the things we've seen in the community. I mean, some people have really gone out really big, and especially among the times that we're having right now, it's so important to make sure we are keeping our kids healthy and safe and inspired for life, because we can be drained ourselves and we can kind of stigmatize our kids with that by extension. So we got to make sure we keep up the good spirits and everything like that. We ourselves as a family, we're going to put a table out for Halloween, and we're going to put candy out on the table so that those who still choose to trick or treat can just simply keep walking by, grab a couple of pieces and keep going, right? Social distancing, no one's touching the same thing, that kind of thing, just to still keep it fun. And we'll be in our Halloween costumes with music playing and spooky decorations, and hopefully the kids and families will enjoy that. That's it for me. Again, our email info@gatachicago.org. And as I always like to end, please vote. Please, please vote, 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 and vote. This week, you can vote anywhere at the Super Center downtown, and you can vote anywhere. But as of next week, then your wards where you vote will be open for you to vote. But please go and vote. If you haven't gotten your ballot yet, go to the Board of Elections for where you live and where you reside, and go ahead and get your ballot and vote. If you're in the 606 area, your election authority is the Board of Elections. If you're in the suburban Cook County, your election authority is the Cook County Clerk, okay, of Elections. So either way, make sure you are able to vote. Go down there and hand your ballot right to your clerk, and all should be well in the name of voting. Now, what we're voting for and why we're voting, those are our personal objectives. I personally feel that we are standing on the shoulders of those that have died before us, and it is our duty, our responsibility. It is a must that we go out there and honor those sacrifices. The sacrifices are still happening today. Young people today are voting. Young people today are fighting and protesting for the right to vote. It's not just for them to vote, it's the right for those who are privileged to vote to vote. Everyone has the privilege to vote. Even inmates who have done their time can vote. There's a lot of speculation around that. But if you don't vote, then you have nothing to say. Until next time.